right, guys. We're going to go on and get started with the new semester, factoring. So we've done factoring before. We've covered this already a few spots. There's going to be one or two things that are new. We just didn't get the chance to cover it with polynomial, higher degree polynomials, our grouping, and the sum and difference of perfect cubes. But we're covering factoring again because rational equations, we start talking about rational equations, rational expressions. Factoring is going to be huge. It's going to help us be able to solve these because we're just going to need a factor. So it's going to be helpful for us to go through this. We'll go through this here. Hopefully you'll understand it better seeing it again. We're going to test over it, and then we're going to hit our next chapter over this here. Also, I think for the most part, y'all did well, especially looking back at the first semester, especially chapters 1 and 2. Not so much here, but I know some of the other hours, the third test and the fourth test went downhill. Not so much because it was harder material. I just think making sure to keep up with our work, actually doing it, asking questions is going to be helpful. Motivation kind of went a little down for some. But starting new semester, let's start strong. And we're starting with this here. Now, the factoring steps, I don't have these specifically in y'all's notes, but for quadratics and quadratic types, we have these 5 main steps.
Sir Candace, if you're still in the building, can you come to the office, please?
Our first main step is greatest common factor. If there isn't something in common with all the terms, we need to factor it out because it's just going to make it easier to factor and nicer on us. Question step 2, 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. It's kind of just getting the problem set up. Step 3 is to find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are going to be opposite. 4, find the factors of the first and third term. And lastly, we want to plug them in and check and make sure we have the correct factors. So if we look at this first problem here, b squared plus 12b plus 20, is there a greatest common factor between these 3 terms? No. And kind of the biggest hint to this is our b squared and 20. Since b squared does not have a number in front of it, our third term, our constant term, doesn't have a variable. It's kind of telling us, hinting at the fact that there is no greatest common factor among these 3 terms. So we move on to step 2. Our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Got it. Step 3 is to find the sign. So we're looking for the sign. We're going to check the third term. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the third term is positive, so the signs are going to be the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is also plus, so we have plus and plus. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third terms. Now our first term is b squared. Well, the only set of factors for b squared is b and b. And really, for the most part, especially when we went through factoring, we didn't really write b squared down because since there's only one set of factors, there's one only possibility, we normally just plug it in. But if it does help to list that out, go on and list it out. Now the set of factors for 20, we do have a few. We have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Now we need to pick which one we want to try first and plug it in. Which set of factors of 20 do we want to try first? 2 and 10. We're going to plug it in and then we're going to check. Now there's a few things, or a few of the multiplication or distributive property I just don't do. B times B, I don't multiply, I don't check that because, well, where did we get the B and B from? They're factors of b squared. So by definition, they're going to multiply together to give us back b squared. 2 and 10. Well, 2 times 10 is 20. They're the factors of 20. So unless we got the wrong factors, those are not going to tell me much of anything. What I want to check for is the middle term. And we get it from our outer set, b times 10. And b times 10 is positive 10b. And our 2 times b, which is positive 2b. And 10b plus 2b is 12b. Is that the middle term we wanted? Yes. So b plus 2 times b plus 10 is the correct set of factors. Now, you don't have to write this, but if you had it as b plus 10 times b plus 2, that's the same answer. Because we can multiply it in any order, so either one of these works. We don't have to have both, we just need one of them. Questions on this here? A squared plus 4a minus 32. Yeah. Yeah, I just wrote it flipped. A squared plus 4a minus 32. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No, because a squared doesn't have a number besides 1. 32 doesn't have a variable, so there's no common factor. So we have our two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here our third term sign is negative. So that automatically means one of the signs has to be positive, the other has to be negative. Factors of the first term. What are our factors for a squared? A and A, and that's the only set of factors for a squared. Because we only have the one set of factors, might as well just plug it in. Our third term is 32. Now 32 has a few more factors. Because we do have 1 and 32, 2 and 16. 3 is not a factor, but 4 and 8 are. 5 is not a factor because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. 6 is not a factor because 2 and 3 aren't. So these are the only factors for this here. Which one do we want to try first? 8 and 4, 4 and 8. So we can plug these in and check. And again, I'm not going to multiply a times a because a times a is still a squared. 4 times negative 8 is still negative 32. Now a times negative 8 is going to be negative 8a. Positive 4 times a is going to be positive 4a. And negative 8a plus 4a, negative 8 plus 4, negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4a. Is that the middle term we wanted? No, yes and no. I mean, we did want 4a, but we want it to be positive, not negative. So if we get the correct number but wrong sign, all we need to do is flip the signs. A times positive 8 is going to be positive 8a. Negative 4 times a is now negative 4a. And 8a minus 4a gives us our positive 4a. Now for this here, this setup, it is possible. Instead of flipping the signs, we could have switched the 8 and 4. And that would have also gotten us to the same spot. But especially once we start getting numbers in front of a other than 1 and 1 are the same number in front of it, we'd have to switch everything. I think it's easier just to flip the signs than it is to switch our a's and our numbers. Questions on this here? x squared minus 17x plus 72. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No. So we can move on to our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, here the third term is positive. So the signs are going to be the same, and they're going to match the sign of the middle term, which is negative. So we're saying that both signs are going to be negative. Now when you look at the factors of the first term, well, the factors of x squared are going to be x and x. Not a number in front of it, so that's all there are factors of the first term. Now we need to look at the factors of 72. Well, the first one we have is 1 and 72. And we also have 2 and 36. We have 3 and 24. We have 4 and 18. 5 is not a factor, but 6 and 12. 7 doesn't work, but we do have 8 and 9. Which set of factors do we want to try first? 8, 9. X times x is still x squared. Negative 8 times negative 9, the negative make a positive. 8 times 9 is still 72. Now, x times negative 9 is negative 9x. Negative 8 times x is going to be negative 8x. So negative 9x minus 8x, negative 9 minus 8 is indeed negative 17x. And that is the middle term we wanted, yes? So x minus 9 times x minus 8 are the correct factors because it does indeed give us the correct middle term. Questions on how we got this here? We ready for the next one? X squared minus 7x minus 30. Is there a greatest common factor? Well, no, x squared and 30 kind of give us a hint that there's not one. Not a number in front of x squared, not a variable with 30, so there's not anything in common. If the third term, so then we'd have our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, our third term is negative, so our signs have to be opposite. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Factors of the first term. Well, what is our first term? Just x squared, yes? So the only factors are what? X and x, that's the only option. 30, on the other hand, we do have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't work, but 5 and 6 does. Which one do we want to try first? 3 and 10? Again, we find the factors, we plug it in to see which one works, and we check it, and we want to make sure we get the correct middle term of negative 7x. Now, x times negative 10, Positive x times negative 10 is going to give us a negative 10x. Positive 3 times positive x is going to give us positive 3x. Negative 10x plus 3x, negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7x. Is that the middle term we wanted? So, x plus 3 times x minus 10, or x minus 10 times x plus 3 are the correct factors. That's it. Questions on this here? P squared plus 15p plus 50. Greatest common factor. There's not one between these three terms, so we just move on to our second step, our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, here the third term is positive, so it tells us the signs have to be the same, and they're going to match the sign of our middle term, which is also plus. Factors of the first and third term. Well, the only factors of p squared are p and p. Factors of 50. 1 and 50. 2 and 25. 3 is not a factor of 50. Neither is 4, because 50 is not divisible by 4. Then we have 5 and 10. We could check 6 if we want. 10 divided by 6 is not 10. 50 divided by 6 is 8.333. 50 is not divisible by 7, and we're done. So we only have 1 and 50, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. Which one do we want to try first? What do you think? 5 and 10. And we can check and make sure we got it set up right. P times 10 is 10p. 5 times p is 5p. 10p plus 5p is indeed positive 15p. So we do have the correct middle term. That's it. Questions on this here? All right. We're not going to do too many more of these. We're going to do a few more, then I'll let you have the rest of the time to just finish up the assignment going over this here. 2r squared plus 6r minus 8. Is there a greatest common factor? Yeah. 2. So we're going to factor it out. We're going to divide all three spots by 2. 2r squared divided by 2 is going to leave us with r squared. 6r divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is going to give us positive 3. And we still have our r. And negative 8 divided by 2 is going to be negative 4. So we pull that greatest common factor of 2 out. We still need it as a part of the answer. It is still included in our answer. But we have it listed out front. Since we finished factoring out that greatest common factor of 2, we can move on to step number 2, our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. The reason I write it, and the reason I do that is not so much because it's a necessary step, it just makes sure our parentheses are wide enough that everything is going to fit. Now we're going to find the signs. If that third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. Third term is negative, which it is. Our signs are opposite. One's going to be positive and one is going to be negative. Factors of r squared. Well, there's only one set, r and r. Factors of 4. We have 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Which one are we trying first? 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? 1 and 4, yes. Which one do we want positive? 4 positive, 1 negative. R times negative 1 is negative r, negative 1r. 4 times r is going to be positive 4r. Negative r plus 4r, negative 1 plus 4 gives us positive 3, which is the middle term we wanted. I dropped that so off. Telling us that 2 times r plus 4 times r minus 1 is the correct set of factors. And we're matching it up to the 3r because after taking out that greatest common factor of 2, we're not looking at 6r anymore. We're looking at 3. Questions on this here? Four x squared minus 20x minus 56. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? Yes, and the greatest common factor is 4. If there's a greatest common factor, we need to factor it out, especially if the first term is negative. If that x squared term is negative, we need to factor out the negative. Now, when we factor 4 out of 4x squared, we're left with x squared. When we factor 4 out of 20x, we're left with 5x. And when we factor 4 out of 56, we're left with 14. Two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. The sign of our third term is what? Negative, so the signs have to be opposite. If that third term is negative, our signs have to be opposite. One has to be positive, one has to be negative. Doesn't really matter which one we set as plus or which one we set as minus. We just know one has to be 1 and the other has to be the other. One has to be plus, one has to be minus. Factors of x squared are x and x. Those are the only factors of x squared. Now, factors of 14, we have 1 and 14 or 2 and 7. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 7. The 7 we want positive. 2 negative. And then we can check 7x times 7 is positive 7x. Negative 2 times x. Negative 2x. 7x minus 2x gives us positive 5x. Is that the middle term we wanted? Well, yes and no. Yes, it is the correct number, but no, it's not the right sign. So we need to flip the signs. X times negative 7 would give us the negative 7x. 2 times x would be our positive 2x. Negative 7x plus 2x is the negative 5x that we wanted. So 4 times x plus 2 times x minus 7 is our correct answer. Questions on this here? Questions on any of this so far? Or you feel good with this here? All right. So I'm going to go on and give you the worksheet for this here. There you go. So again, I would practice these, do these. Make sure you're working on these and not waiting to the last minute to do them. That way, if you do have questions, you can ask, get help. And if you are looking them up, because I know that it is possible for the computer to do this, there's lots of methods to do it. I would use that as a resource to make sure you're doing it right, or if you get stuck, I wouldn't use it just to get the answer. Because if the only time that you're actually doing it on your own is on the test, it's kind of hard to do it then. You have to have practice.